and I think it starts with Scarlett. Scarlett's like a Johansson. She's a very powerful, talented woman in the MCU. And I believe that she, maybe she didn't have the first franchise film, but she really created that space. She's quite a pioneer who takes up space and gets heard. And so I really do think when it comes to like the female presence, I feel like Scarlett, was welcomed into the door in the Iron Man films and just really busted it down.
From a mysterious femme fatale to a woman desperately trying to keep her family together, my OG, Black Widow Natasha Romanoff, has one of the most interesting developments in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Debuting in 2010's Iron Man 2 and making her final appearance in her 2021 solo movie, she has been a SHIELD spy, a member and a leader of the Avengers, a traumatized big sister, and a hero willing to give up her life to save the universe. She's developed a lot. She is the reason why I got into the MCU. I'm sure it's not that hard for you, viewer, to believe that I was not into Captain America, or Thor, or Iron Man. I was not into those heroes at all. I was a Charlie's Angels kid. An ultraviolet child, if you know what I mean. But the second they put the heroine in Iron Man 2 and in the Avengers, I thought, wait a minute. Hold on. They could be cooking something here. There's a woman and she's fighting. There is the potential mother. And the rest is history. Natasha's arc is not only rich and complex on its own, but on a meta level, it's also a reflection of how mainstream media's portrayal of women has evolved. 2010 was a different time, and while we have Wanda, Agatha, Riri, Okoye, Yelena, Sue, and lots of complex heroines in the MCU and in mainstream media these days, we did not have that many back then. So thank you to them that came before. This is Witch Alice, and welcome to another video. For this one, we are going to talk about Natasha Romanoff's development and journey in the MCU, as well as her legacy, and everything else. How she was written, her character design, we'll talk about it. I just gotta pop out my ears. Let's get into it. Natasha debuted in Iron Man 2, and it was a memorable introduction. There are good things about Natasha in this movie, but there are also complicated things. Natasha is introduced as a SHIELD agent working at Stark Industries. Nick Fury sent her there to catch Tony Stark's attention and get close to him so that SHIELD can monitor his condition after they found out he was dying. This was the third film in the MCU, and after Iron Man, the Hulk, and War Machine, Black Widow is technically the fourth hero introduced in the franchise. Fifth, if you count Jarvis, who later becomes part of Vision's code. Sixth, if you count Pepper, who later becomes Rescue. And seventh, if you count Phil Coulson, because Nick Fury says he considers him an Avenger in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. ride or die. As I said, Iron Man 2 Black Widow was a memorable debut. We don't just get told that she's a spy, she's actually doing spy work, complete with a fake name and a fake job. We see her manipulating Tony to get closer to him. It's a solid and immediately comprehensible introduction. Black Widow's essence as a character is efficiently conveyed. Fake identity, spy work, manipulation equals Black Widow. Nat has one set piece dedicated to her in this movie, a hallway fight, and I really like how consistent her fighting style, her moveset, has stayed throughout her appearances. And I know we sort of playfully poke at it, but I really, really love it when Black Widow does that scissor leg move thing. This attack. I die for it every time. I get the same feeling watching Black Widow do this move that I get when Lady Gaga starts playing Bad Romance. It's the hits, play the hits, you know what I mean? I didn't realize until making this video that she does this move 3 times in Iron Man 2. Her screen time in this film is 10 minutes and 13 seconds. That is about one scissor leg move every 3 minutes and 30 seconds. You go, girl. Scarlett Johansson also said in this interview with Entertainment Weekly that they worked hard on her fight choreography to choose moves that were spider-like. Because her name is Black Widow, which is a spider, they wanted to mimic a spider crawling around and wrapping her prey. And they also wanted her moves to take inspiration from ballet, as Natasha does have some ballet in her background in the comics. You can tell they made the right combat choices for Nat in this movie because her fighting style remained consistent throughout her run in the MCU. I mean, the only reason, and I believe this, the only reason why they lost in Infinity War is because Nat never got the chance to do her scissor attack on Thanos. That is a fact, in my opinion. I definitely have more appreciation for Iron Man 2 nowadays than I did back when it first came out. Of course, when it first came out, I was 11. I didn't understand the concept of a man spiraling out of control after finding out that he's dying. Tony Stark was coming to terms with his death, and I was a child, so I was like, what? I still don't think it's one of the highlights of the MCU, but I look at it less harshly these days, let's say. Now, on to the complicated things about Black Widow in Iron Man 2. She is, in this movie, very sexualized, especially when you compare her depiction in Iron Man 2 with her depiction in the later entries in the MCU. It's incredibly apparent. Her entire plot in Iron Man 2 can essentially be boiled down to be a sexy spy and get close to Iron Man. And I just really wish the people behind this movie gave her more to do than just that. In a press junket for Endgame in 2019, Scarlett talked about Black Widow's evolution and referred to her role in Iron Man 2 as a sexy secretary.
The character really started as, you know, a sort of secretary, a sexy secretary with a skill set on the side and
posing as,
thank you.
You know, I think Favreau got a little offended when I called her a sexy secretary. He was like, well, she was undercover. I was like, okay, yeah, definitely, that was true. But
And yeah, she is undercover. She's not just a sexy secretary, technically speaking, but like, literally 2 of her scenes in this movie have men looking at her like this.
You can read Latin or you can write Latin.
I want one.
No.
watch the road.
I got it.
So, can you really blame Scarlett for feeling like the sexy aspect was what this movie concentrated more on with Natasha? And yes, alright, we have to acknowledge that this is the MCU. It's an action blockbuster. A lot of the heroes are sexualized, male or female. The Chris's all have shirtless scenes. Everyone is sexualized to a degree. But for most of the male heroes most of the time, the extent of their sexualization is just a shirtless scene. We get one brooding shirtless scene and that's it. The movie moves on. The guys have other plot-related things that they have to do. For Widow in Iron Man 2, her entire plot is that she has to be pretty enough for Tony Stark to be interested in her so she can get close to him and spy on him. Her entire plot literally revolves around being attractive in Iron Man 2. And I just wish the team behind the movie worked harder to give her more than that. Because when has Thor ever had his role for an entire movie just be to seduce anybody? When has Captain America ever had being hot enough as a requirement to have his goals achieved in the movie? And I'm not saying that they should have erased these parts of Natasha. No, not at all. Because yeah, I guess that is part of her comics history, and yeah, it is part of the spy genre. That whole sexiness thing. I mean, James Bond is a guy. He's a guy, and he's the most famous fictional spy there is. And he's a slut. He fucks around, so that's a given part of the genre, for sure. The sexiness thing. I'm just saying that in hindsight, they could have depicted her as a spy without focusing so much on her sexuality. The Avengers and Winter Soldier are both movies that do a good job at showing Natasha as a great spy who is also an attractive woman without including scenes like these.
Watch the road.
I got it.
Natasha is competent, intelligent, a great fighter, and she's sexy. That's all great. I just wish her depiction in Iron Man 2 got to focus more on the first 3 things and not entirely on the 4th. There is one scene that I really like in Iron Man 2 with Widow and Tony. It's like less than 2 minutes long, but it gives me a little bit of something that I wish they explored more with those two. It's the contrast between Tony, who at this point was someone spiraling out of control, and Natasha, who in here is so controlled and so precise as a manipulative spy. They could have done more with a contrast between these two characters had this movie been written better. But no, so in this movie, Tony is just a creepy boss to his employee and Natasha is sexy. Iron Man 2 is undeniably a product of the late 2000s and early 2010s in terms of how it depicts Black Widow as a female hero. And that really sours the film for me, but it is good to know that depictions of Black Widow in future MCU films only improve from here. Starting from the Avengers.
I've been compromised. I got red in my ledger. I'd like to wipe it out.
Natasha's depiction in 2012's Avengers is a great improvement from her depiction in Iron Man 2, and even Scarlett Johansson herself agrees, stating that she felt Natasha was less an object of fantasy in the Avengers. Johansson said, "The next time we saw her in the Avengers, she was one of the boys, for better or worse. That made sense then."
You know, the character has certainly grown in a way where we've seen her, you know, I think through through Avengers and then certainly with Winter Soldier, had an opportunity to become a woman who realized, oh, I haven't really made any active choices in my life, and was really coming to terms with the as.
It's not that they revamped or completely changed the character from Iron Man 2, not at all. This movie just utilized the character in a much better way, and emphasized her backstory and her skill set and her motivation. In other words, it emphasized her character more than her aesthetic appeal. Yes, the sexuality aspect is still there. She is sent to Banner to bring him into S.H.I.E.L.D., with Banner himself explicitly acknowledging that Fury probably sent her there to persuade him to come in using her charms.
But now I need you to come in.
What if I say no?
I'll persuade you.
Loki is manipulating you.
And you've been doing what exactly?
You didn't come here because I bat my eyelashes at you.
Yes.
But as I said, a spy being seductive, using their skills to manipulate people, that's both part of Natasha's comic history, and it's also just a part of the overall spy genre. The greater difference, though, between how Avengers uses this aspect of Natasha and how Iron Man 2 uses it, is how the Avengers just make it a small part of her overall role. In Avengers, yes, she is a spy who sometimes seduces people, but the movie gives her a lot of other things to do. She's not undercover for most of this movie, and we see her more as a competent spy, as a woman who cares and worries about her friend who was brainwashed and who was abducted by the villain. We see her as a woman with a haunted past, trying to do better and make up for her mistakes. Heck, in this movie, we see her as a spy, masterful and intelligent enough to trick the trickster god. Her character in this movie is made so much more than just a seductive spy, so much more than just a sexy secretary. She's more fleshed out. This movie really was what made it click for me and what made me fall in love with Black Widow in the MCU. Unlike Iron Man 2, where she was a supporting character, she is one of the leads in the Avengers, so she gets given just about the same amount of things to do as all the other heroes. One thing I really love is that Natasha has the sequence with the Hulk in the middle of the movie, and it's one of my favorite Hulk sequences. After the helicarrier gets bombed, Nat and Banner fall together deep into the ship, and the explosion triggers a transformation. Nat desperately tries to calm Banner down, but she fails and she now has to deal with a rampaging monster. I love it because, as Iron Man 2 and this movie established, one of Nat's strengths as a spy is deception and manipulation, but against a rampaging, raging Hulk, that doesn't really matter. You can't talk a Hulk into calming down, at least not yet in this movie. But yeah, the Hulk is shown as this terrifying, monstrous creature of destruction, and the entire encounter kind of shakes Nat to her core to the point that it leaves her in some kind of shocked state. She's only able to snap out of it when Clint is mentioned. It shows that Black Widow isn't some kind of one-dimensional girl boss action figure that solves everything, but that she has very real, very human limitations, and I really appreciate that. There's also this deleted scene that I really love, and it's Nat and Clint fighting against the Chitauri. Most of it has unfinished VFX, but in one of its beats, a Chitauri soldier grabs Natasha and throws her into a car. I love it when human characters in these superhero films get thrown around. It feels very visceral, and honestly, this stunt looks so much fun. Whoa! Now, this is a bit funny. I don't understand this, but like, why did we have this whole suit-up scene only for Natasha to walk into the Battle of New York with 2 pistols and her widow's bites? Like, girl, you could have brought more guns? A shotgun, maybe? Or a rifle? I don't know, something with more firepower? They told her aliens were invading New York. They were like, Natasha, an army of aliens is invading New York. And she said, oh, aliens? Let me get my taser. I used to hate her costume in The Avengers. I thought it looked cheaper compared to her sleeker, more streamlined suit in Iron Man 2, but having rewatched this movie in all these years, I've really started to enjoy how much more relatively fit for battle it is than the Iron Man 2 suit. That looks like it's better for espionage, it's sleeker and more streamlined, and this looks like it has relatively thicker and more protective material. Throughout the battle, the concrete, the dust, the rubble mattify it, and I really like how it looks battle-worn. In Iron Man 2, Natasha has 2 belts, and that costuming theme continues in the Avengers. She still has 2 belts, and for some reason I like it. It's charming. One has the logo, and the other has her thigh holsters. I do like her widow's bites better in Iron Man 2. Those look more sturdy. Her widow's bites in the Avengers kind of look flimsier compared to the Iron Man 2 ones. Natasha and Cap interact a lot in this movie, which is great because Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson have a lot of chemistry together. And that leads us to Nat's next appearance, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. If you're still enjoying this video, please consider leaving a comment or a like, or maybe even a subscribe. I'm a small channel and that would help me out a lot. Thank you. Here is another Natasha appearance that I really love. It continues the depiction of Natasha in the context of her life as a SHIELD agent and as a woman with a past she regrets, that she's currently trying to make up for by doing good in the present. This is technically Steve Rogers' movie, but after Steve, Nat gets the second most amount of focus. She is technically not the main character, she's back to being a supporting character here, but she's used so much better this time around than she was in Iron Man 2. As I said, I like the idea of putting Tony and Nat together in that movie, but that movie just didn't do a lot with that thematic through line with those two characters. Winter Soldier, though, uses the contrast between Nat and Steve's characters very well. Both of their differences are used to expose and examine each of their characters. Nat's flexible ethics are used greatly to highlight Steve's more noble and uncompromising traits as Captain America, and in turn, Steve's Boy Scouty sense of justice and morality are used to highlight Nat's shadier, more complicated nature.
Oh, that's alright. You just make something up.
What, like you?
I don't know. The truth is a matter of circumstance. It's not all things to all people, all the time. Neither am I. If it was the other way around, and it was down to me to save your life, and you'd be honest with me, would you trust me to do it?
I would now. And I'm always honest.
I mean, the fact that they both work for S.H.I.E.L.D., right? They both work for S.H.I.E.L.D., but Nat gets her own secret missions while working on Steve's missions is a great little detail.
Our mission is to rescue hostages.
No, that's your mission.
Not only does it show the depth of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s secrets, which is an important theme in that movie, but it also shows, again, the contrast in Nat and Steve's characters and how Fury sees them.
I didn't want you doing anything you weren't comfortable with. Agent Romanoff is comfortable with everything.
Nat and Steve spend a lot of time together, and they complement each other very well, I think. Because of their differences, their interactions are so fun to watch. And it helps, again, that Scarlett and Chris have really great chemistry together. Before I get into her arc, let me just say, I think Nat's character design is so top tier in this movie. Her suit is so streamlined. This is probably one of my favorite suits of hers. And also, still, 2 belts, bitch! I love Widow's fights in this movie. She's presented as the tactical equivalent of the Winter Soldier. I never noticed this until recently, that she saves Steve and Sam by moving them away from Bucky's headshots in this scene. And I mean, she landed a headshot on Bucky. Her spy tricks were working on him, and if they were equal in strength, if he wasn't a super soldier, dare I say she would have beat him. That's mother. Natasha telling people to get out of the way, I think, is a nice character thing. I think this is the first instance of this. And this comes back again later on in later movies with her. Nat's arc is subtle, but I do think this is a very important movie in her overall journey in the MCU. This is the movie where she makes the choice to fully commit to being a public hero. This is where she chooses that she needs to be a little less of the Black Widow who's the spy working in the shadows, being undercover and deceitful, and more of the Black Widow who's an accountable public hero that people can look up to and rely on. Hear me out. She does a lot of reflecting in this movie, what with S.H.I.E.L.D. falling apart and her time bonding with Steve, and I think those two factors were two big things that motivated Natasha's choices not only in this movie, but in her future in the MCU.
When I first joined S.H.I.E.L.D., I thought I was going straight. But I guess I just traded in the KGB for Hydra. I thought I knew whose lies I was telling, but I guess I can't tell the difference anymore.
S.H.I.E.L.D. is what she dedicated her life to after defecting from the Red Room and gaining her freedom from the oppressive Black Widow program. She worked for S.H.I.E.L.D. thinking she was atoning for her past mistakes and finally doing good things. The sudden and violent revelation that she has actually been working for Hydra all along did not hit Nat easily. And we can see in this movie her having to just sit down and process that shit for a moment. As for Steve, I think he just inspired her to embrace her more heroic side. She does follow and agree with him in the decision to expose all of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s secrets. That includes exposing a lot of the shady things she's done. There's this moment in the climax of the movie where she's about to leak S.H.I.E.L.D.'s files, and Pierce asks her if she's ready to be seen by the whole world. She takes a moment, and she doesn't directly answer it, but she does it anyway. After this movie, Nat becomes an Avenger, and we see her taking accountability for her choices and no longer reporting to someone like Fury, or something something like S.H.I.E.L.D. She becomes a hero with her own sense of agency and responsibility. This is where she decides that Natasha, the secretive, deceptive spy, was gonna have to evolve into Natasha, the very public hero now. She literally ends this movie publicly declaring to the government that she'll be there when the world needs saving again. And that leads us to Age of Ultron. I'm not really that into how Natasha was depicted in this movie. I mean, yes, she is one of the main characters in this ensemble, and yes, she is in a lot of it physically, but in terms of substantial character development or evolution for her, Age of Ultron doesn't really offer much. It does show us her life as a full-time Avenger, and it does give us some details about how Nat sees herself, and she does end this movie in something of a co-leadership position over the team with Steve. But so much of her story in this movie is related to Bruce. And for me personally, it's honestly so annoying. The awkwardness of the romance and their lack of chemistry together really dulls down Natasha's entire role in this movie. In concept, I love that Natasha, a master manipulator, can calm down the Hulk enough to transform him back to Banner. Love that concept. But in execution, the fact that it's tied to a love story really makes it a lot less interesting for me. It would have been fun to see her dynamic with the other Avengers more, like Tony, because I actually think the two of them are very similar in their dry humor and their morals, and I would have also liked to see more of Nat and Thor, but no, she's saddled most of the time, again, with Banner. Alright, that's the last of that for now. This movie showed us a little bit of Nat's time in the Red Room, and I liked what little we got to see. I liked the Red Room aesthetic this movie had. It was dark and cold, and it looked like it happened in a period war movie.
The ceremony is necessary for you to take your place in the world. I have no place in the world. Exactly.
This was the most concrete depiction we had of Nat's background at this point, and I don't know, knowing later on from her solo movie that she endured this kind of conditioning, being told she was worthless and has no place in the world from her childhood until her defection is kind of really heartbreaking. I am so glad for how this movie takes Nat and Clint's friendship further. The fact that she's Auntie Nat to his kids is so heartwarming. I really enjoy Nat and Clint's bond, and I enjoy a lot of the farm scenes in this movie actually, except for this. And now we're back with a Banner and Natasha romance hatred. I hate this conversation so much. I hate it. It essentially boils down to Banner saying, "You're too good for me, I can't be with you, I'm a monster." And Natasha replying, "No, I am also a monster, please love me." And I hate that. What I hate most about this romance is that most of the time it really feels like he doesn't want to be with her, and she keeps on trying to be with him. It feels that way. Natasha, you are too good to be chasing a man. He doesn't want to be with you. Diva, you do not chase, you attract. Natasha does propose to go away with Banner in this movie to run away, and I like the insight this gives us about her character.
You know I have to leave.
But you assume that I have to stay? I had this, dream. The kind that seems normal at the time. But when you wake...
What did you dream?
That I was an Avenger. That I was anything more than the assassin they made me.
It tells us that despite being a founding member of the Avengers, she still thinks she's a terrible person and not worthy to be in the team. She thinks she's just pretending to be someone else and pretending to be a member of this family. And that is heartbreaking, especially with what happens in her next appearance in Civil War. Anyway, I have nothing to say about this bike scene. I don't know. She's in a bike. I don't like it. I don't dislike it. Also, Natasha telling people to get out of the way again.
Out of the way, coming through. Sorry.
Nice.
Beep, beep.
Natasha's arc is completed in this movie with her choosing to stay after proposing to run away with Banner, remember? She chooses to stay and fight for Sokovia and be an Avenger instead of doing that. And I don't know, she's had better arcs. It's there, I guess. So that's cool. There's also this moment between Nat and Cap in Sokovia while it's floating in the sky, where Nat suggests to Cap that they don't get off the island and essentially let themselves die there.
Up here versus everyone down there, there's no map there.
I'm not leaving this rock with one civilian on it.
I didn't say we should leave. There's worse ways to go. Where else am I gonna get a view like this?
The fuck? That's very Nat, and I like that moment. She's just... Age of Ultron also gives her these batons, and I'm not a fan. I think they only gave her this because Disney didn't want to advertise a main character in their franchise with dual handguns. They still allow her guns every now and then, but it's more batons in her marketing materials. And I dislike that because Nat isn't really associated with batons in the comics. Mockingbird is. Why not focus on her widow's bites? Those are unique and they're kind of iconic. I'm not a big fan of the sticks. I like her silhouette in this movie, but I don't like her costume. I dislike the shade of red in it, and I also really hate the texture of her suit. It looks like it's hard to move in, and I hate that it lights up. I despise that it lights up. Yeah, let's give the spy the glowing suit. That's a great fucking idea. And I also don't like that her widow's bites look like toys. They're so big. Also, one belt. I don't know how I feel about that. That brings us to Civil War. Civil War Natasha is another of my favorite Natashas. In here, she operates more as a co-leader of the Avengers with Steve, she runs missions, and is also training the newer members, like Wanda. I don't know, there must be something about Black Widow in a Captain America movie with the Russos directing, because her action scenes in this one are fucking stellar, just like they were in Winter Soldier. I mean, Black Widow in the Civil War opening, from the bike, her moves taking out these goons, being thrown inside an armored vehicle with a bomb by Crossbones, this was some good shit. Not, again, getting people out of the way. And this 2 versus 1, I remember was so tense when I first saw this. Like, fuck, she's just unleashing her moves on these 2 guys. Are you seeing this? Are you watching this? The fuck? In terms of her character and her role in this film, I think they wrote her pretty well. Whereas Tony and Steve are incredibly emotional in Civil War and make a lot of, dare I say, irrational decisions based on their big feelings, Nat is level-headed by comparison. Tony's guilt from having so many people die after he made Ultron is eating away at him, and Steve's principles and his clouded judgment about things related to Bucky is making him do a lot of whack shit. Natasha, on the other hand, indeed has emotional motivations too. Her goal in this whole movie is to keep the Avengers together. She sees them as her family, remember? And she sees being an Avenger as her way of making up for her past. So there is emotion involved in it for her, but she doesn't share the guilt that Tony has. And it's pretty clear that she actually doesn't believe in the Accords or agree with its principle. She's just signing it now to avoid the tense political situation from escalating. Signing it and trying to convince her team to sign it to avoid having the government break them up and throw them in jail. I honestly believe Nat would have had all the Avengers sign the Accords and then just have them disobey the UN later if they prevent the Avengers from helping a situation that needs them. I mean, she basically did that in the movie. She signed the Accords, told the government she would obey them, and then disobeyed them when she needed to anyway. You know when someone asks you to follow really terrible rules, but you don't want to argue, so even when you don't agree with the rules, you just say yes and then break them later anyways? That's our Widow. Steve isn't that though. He's Captain America, and he has principles, and he's honest. So all of this has to happen because he couldn't just smile and lie to the government. Okay, that's an oversimplification, but this is a Widow video, not a Captain America video. Don't get me wrong, I am Team Cap, I just prefer Nat's handling of the situation. She was also the one level-headed enough to first realize that the airport fight was just going to get worse and that her friends were going to start seriously hurting each other. She's such a great Avengers leader for that. They cut it in the final movie, but there's the scene in the trailer where she climbs up the airport and sees the fight for the mess it's becoming. I'm guessing this was her moment of realization that shit was just gonna keep hitting the fan. And she's right, Rhodey would have been the best case scenario had she not let Cap go. I love that they kept Nat and Steve's closeness here with Nat going to Steve after Peggy's death. I don't really have strong feelings about this Widow suit. It's not bad. It works for what it is. 2 belts are back though, and as much as I hated the electric batons in Age of Ultron, I despise these tonfas even more. You are Black Widow. Why tonfas? Why does she have these tonfas? What is she, the security guard at the Avengers compound? All that aside, I really loved Nat in Civil War. And now it's Infinity War. Nat wasn't really in a lot of Infinity War, but I thought she was well enough in it. She's still co-leading the team with Steve, but I guess they aren't technically the Avengers anymore. I think they also confirmed behind the scenes that Nat has been training Wanda, which is why Wanda doesn't have that thick Sokovian accent anymore. And that's nice. I like her suit. This is the debut appearance of Yelena's vest, which we didn't know at the time. I also really like her new look. It makes perfect sense with them being wanted and hiding and all, so they had to change their appearances. It makes sense. There's not really much to talk about with Nat at Infinity War. She was there. She was present. I like this line.
Vision, get your ass back on the table.
I also like that she ran to Thanos, tasers ready. Like, yeah, girl, she said, he might have beat the hook, but he hasn't faced my tasers yet. Love her. That leads us to Endgame. Natasha appears to be the solo leader of the Avengers in Endgame after the 5-year gap. The movie shows her in a meeting with the other Avengers as they talk about keeping the world safe. I like that she's really depressed in this movie. I mean, it's heartbreaking, but it is an interesting development for her character. To see her go from this mysterious, undercover, guarded spy to this really vulnerable, almost falling apart leader and hero, I like it. Her failure in stopping Thanos with the other Avengers clearly took a massive toll on her. The design choice to have her abandon maintaining care of her hair and letting her roots grow out with a blonde bleach staying, love. I've met a few depression girlies, I've been a depression girly. Taking care of your dye job is the last thing you're thinking about when you're breaking down almost every second. This hair is very real, love. Even after all these years, Nat says she stays leading the Avengers because they're her family, and because the job makes her better. She has a very clear motivation in this movie, and it's one that she's had basically since Age of Ultron. This motivation leads to her sacrificing herself, and that made me really sad because I didn't want her to die, but it made sense for her, and really, I don't say this lightly. I mean this with full sincerity. Her sacrificing herself the way that they pulled it off in Endgame, that felt legendary. This was fully her choice. She was an Avenger, and she had a family. 2 families, in fact, that she wanted to bring back. She was a hero, and she was determined to do her part in saving the universe no matter what. Her sacrifice also emphasized that she's an incredibly caring friend to Clint and wanted him reunited with his family too.
The last 5 years I've been trying to do one thing, get to right here. That's all it's been about, bringing everybody back.
Listen, I had a lot of emotions watching this for the first time, alright? I was resentful once I started realizing what was happening when I watched this for the first time. Kind of angry, even maybe. And really sad. Natasha was my favorite hero in the MCU at that time. Of course I didn't want her dead. And I knew while watching Endgame that she had a movie coming up, but that meant that her movie was going to be her finale. And after that, there was not gonna be any more of her. I was really upset to the point that that almost ruined my Endgame experience. But as it went on, I did really feel that her motivation was really strong. And the fact that it was emphasized how much agency she had in that decision. That she, Natasha Romanoff, chose to give up her life to make the universe whole again. It ended up being one of the most powerful moments in the film. Because that's a fucking hero. I still hate that she's dead, but the fact that it was such a strong, heroic choice from her kind of makes it a little bit better. But not entirely. There is an alternate version of this scene out there where Thanos is attacking them as Nat's sacrifice happens. And yeah, I so agree with the decision to replace that with what's in the final movie. In the alternate scene, Thanos arrives at Vormir and his troops start attacking Natasha and Clint. It just becomes a messy, melodramatic sequence where Natasha gets shot 3 times. 3 times! And she essentially has to crawl to sacrifice herself. I'm a maximalist. I love when things go big. I love camp. But that's a lot. Like, she's shot 3 times and has to crawl to her death to sacrifice herself. That is a lot. So I am glad that we got the quieter, more grounded and emotionally intimate scene in the final film. Also, maybe in the world of the MCU they had a separate funeral for Natasha, but I don't know. Having the final scene of the movie be a ceremony dedicated solely to Tony felt kinda weird. Like they both died, and they were both key to winning all of this. But I don't know, maybe they had a separate funeral. We know for a fact that Vision did not get a funeral, because... And that brings us to Black Widow, Natasha's finale in the MCU. I have to say, as much as I love Nat, I was a little disappointed by this movie. I like it well enough, but as a finale for my favorite MCU character, and for a movie that we campaigned and waited so long for, 2021's Black Widow was a little underwhelming. Not in the character work it did for Natasha, no, I think the character work was done really well. Just underwhelming as an action movie. Her combat abilities are a big reason why I love Nat. She always delivers in her fight scenes, so it disappointed me that her movie did not do the fights justice. What I did like, though, again, is Natasha's characterization in this movie. Her personality, where she is emotionally, her general vibes, if you will. Natasha was great before, and I already loved her, but there's something about her in Black Widow that she just didn't have in her previous appearances, save maybe for a little in Endgame, and that is her vulnerability. She's still incredibly guarded, but she's a lot less so in this movie compared to her other appearances. Natasha has a tendency to act cool and relaxed even in stressful situations. You can see a lot of that in Winter Soldier especially. She's got a playful personality.
We're still friends, right?
And if you've been through the things that she's been through, yeah, her humor and her habit to play things cool makes sense. But that part of her personality is significantly muted in this movie. She is, for most of this film, jaded and exhausted. And she makes very little effort to pretend that she isn't. And I enjoy that so much because it feels like such a fresh, side of the character. There are two reasons why I think Natasha is less guarded in this movie. One, she's still in pain from having her heart broken after trying so hard to keep the Avengers together all these years, from trying so hard to hold on to what she considered her family, and trying so hard to do good and be a hero, and having all of that tear itself apart and crumble. The movie begins with Natasha on the run and isolating herself. She goes to some remote part of the world and says she's done.
Shouldn't have gone to all this trouble. I'm done. I'm actually better on my own.
She could have gone to look for Cap immediately, but no. At the start of the movie, she just doesn't want to do that. She's hurt, and she's exhausted, and she just wants to be left alone now. And the second reason why I think Nat's less guarded in this movie is because she spends most of it with her OG family, with Alexei, Melina, and Yelena. And she doesn't have to pretend to be anything else with these people. She doesn't have to act cool or be playful. They know exactly what she's been through. And she doesn't have to hide her pain and her exhaustion with them because they know. Natasha is still guarded, though, but instead of cracking a joke and acting relaxed to guard her pain, this time she uses her jadedness and her exhaustion to hide something else.
Kids, you weren't really my sister.
Who cares? That wasn't real.
What? That wasn't real. Who cares?
This, as the movie confirms later on, is a lie.
It was real to me too.
Natasha, for most of Black Widow, is hiding her affection. She hides from Yelena, Melina, and Alexei that her time with them was real for her too. And why wouldn't she? The family that she spent years building and protecting just fell out in the worst way possible. And I like this arc that the movie has for her. She's in pain at the start of the movie. In pain from her Avengers family being torn apart, and she's acting like she doesn't care about them anymore. And it takes having her original undercover but real family back for her to admit that she still cares for and wants her Avengers family back too. Natasha is just a woman who has had to constantly be alone in her life, so she acts like she likes being alone. But being with the people she loves and being with a family is something she really enjoys and longs for too. So yeah, her arc in this movie, great, lovely, iconic. I also really like the supporting cast. All the new characters they introduced are great. Yelena especially, love her. This movie also captures quietness and the mundane so beautifully for some reason. There are so many wide shot scenes where the quiet, grounded tone is phenomenal. There's also something Kate Shortland, the director of Black Widow, said in an interview that really struck me, and it's about Natasha's spiritual journey in this movie. She wanted to convey that Natasha was part of the ether, that she was infinite. She said, "What I used was light, so I show fireflies at the beginning of the film, and they reoccur at the end of the film. And for me, it's this idea that everything that's meant to happen has happened, and that she's infinite." That really struck me because I think the idea that this little kid who undeservedly went through so much pain, went through so much trauma, who was a survivor, who fought and dedicated and gave up her life to help people. I think there's something so beautiful in saying that she's infinite now. Keeping in mind what the director said about using light in this movie, this is just phenomenal as one of the final shots of our Natasha in the MCU. And the fact that it's not just us seeing her like this, the fact that it is canonically Yelena looking at her too, seeing her this way, seeing her for everything that she is, the survivor, the hero, the sister. Fuck yeah, what a beautiful fucking shot. It is nice to know that in universe, Yelena exists, that she sees, thinks of, and remembers Natasha as we, the fans, do. I consider Yelena's appearance in Hawkeye to be kind of an epilogue to Natasha's story, and I really love how that series kind of honors Black Widow in a way.
My sister saved the world. Natasha Romanoff, she saved the world.
Damn right. Anyway, another thing that I really didn't like about Black Widow the movie is the conflict. The stakes just really aren't that well established. It's a lot of telling us about the evil Red Room, and a lot of telling us about how they're influencing world events negatively, and not a lot of showing. And for that, I blame Disney. Some of the actors have come out and spoken up about how so much of the Dreykov and the Red Room scenes in the movie were cut or reshot to appease executives because they didn't like the tone of it, how dark it was. So yeah, there's probably a heavier hitting, darker version of this movie that got reshot into oblivion to appease business executives and whatever, that kind of thing. Also the action. Again, the fights in this movie just feel really lacking. I didn't think it did a great job of showcasing Nat's fighting abilities, especially compared to her action scenes in Winter Soldier or Civil War. Now, the Widow suits in this one are some of my favorites in the MCU, especially the final black and gold suit that Natasha uses in the movie. It's stunning how well they translated the gold design from the comics into live action. This suit in motion is so beautiful, and I also really like that Natasha doesn't have her hair loose for most of this movie. I like the braids and I like the low pony that she sports. Not only is it practical, but it also looks really good on her. Supergirl is coming out next year, and I am beyond excited for that. There are a lot more riveting, incredible, and dimensional heroines in media these days, so I just wanted to take a minute to take a look back to a time when we didn't have that many. Black Widow is not the first female action hero, but she is a huge part of what started the current era of heroines we have now. We would not have been able to have so many, not only in the MCU but in the genre as a whole these days, if we didn't have this one really good one from all those years ago. And that's not to take credit away from those heroines that came before her too. Natasha was a huge part of what started this modern conversation of women, not only in superhero films, but in the action genre as a whole. And Scarlett Johansson herself certainly was a part of the effort to have more heroines, as she campaigned in real life to have her own movie and talked about how we needed to see more women on screen kicking butt. I was going to start this video with Scarlett's interviews where she talks about the evolution of Black Widow, but for most of those interviews, they inevitably talk about how sexualized Natasha was in her debut appearance. And it is important to acknowledge that we cannot pretend that Marvel always treated their first female hero properly. But in the end, I decided to start this video with Elizabeth Olsen talking about how Scarlett Johansson took steps behind the scenes to carve a space within the MCU, not only for herself, but for other women too. I mean, if we even look at the Black Widow solo movie we got, which Scarlett Johansson herself helped produce, huge props to her. Because if you look at it from a cynical point of view, given Hollywood's history of ageism and sexism, it would have been so easy for this to have been nothing but a movie where they were replacing Scarlett Johansson with a newer, younger actress. You know, given Hollywood's history of how they treat women. But no, Natasha dying and Yelena becoming the new Black Widow doesn't feel like a cynical, typical Hollywood replacement. Scarlett Johansson producing this movie made sure of that. Instead, it feels like an actual, respectful passing of the baton that honors a character's legacy and gives an optimistic outlook for the new holder of the mantle. If we take a look at how Natasha's Black Widow was portrayed by Hollywood in her first few appearances, and compare that with how Yelena is portrayed in her first few appearances, we can clearly see the shift in how not only the MCU has grown, but in how we as a culture have grown as well, to be present as an audience for that. Yelena's Black Widow is portrayed with a larger focus on her development and her character, as a traumatized woman trying her best to do good in the world, and it's without the blatant lens of sexualization that Natasha's Black Widow had in her earlier days. And it is annoying that it took this long, and there's still so much work that needs to be done, but I am glad that we're finally here. It would have been really nice to see Natasha play in the stage she helped build. You know, we're in this era of storytelling where women are finally allowed to exist in more ways than ever. I would have loved to see Widow interact with Monica, or Wanda now, or Agatha, or Susan. There's that scene in Endgame with all the women, you know, and it's just a little painful and kind of ironic that Natasha, the very first heroine in the franchise, wasn't there. But again, you know, she's in the ether, she's infinite, she's in everything now, she's everywhere. She is a huge part of how we ended up having all these amazing heroines now. Natasha Romanoff, Black Widow. Anyway, that's it. What do you think of Black Widow? Do you like her? Do you hate her? Which suit is your favorite? Please tell me in the comments down below. I would like to know. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment or a like. I'm a small, tiny channel, and that would help me out a lot. Thank you. That's it. I'm out.